Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Wednesday, May 15th, 2019. Hope everyone's having a good work week. We've made it to hump day so far. Can't believe we're almost all the way through the week. The weekend is just around the corner. And let's get right with it tonight with our space weather news update first before we head into some articles. Our solar wind speeds are sitting at a 434.2 kilometers per second with a density of 9.1. Let's go over to the space weather section here at the grandsolarminimum.com. Taking a look at our planetary alignment. And we are on the weaker side of the magnetic field of the sun. And it's interesting where we are right now. It's starting to become a little bit stronger connection, but had some minor activity today, some more minor C flare activities. KP indices have died down in the last 24 hours or so. We're once again back to the 2. So we were expecting possible geomagnetic storm conditions today and tomorrow as well. So we'll keep our eye on that. And also there's that little bit of activity that we saw today that gave us our minor C class flare right there. So that's AR 2741 still kicking. Now 2740 was producing the solar flares as well, and we'll get more into that as we get into the broadcast. I got a couple things we want to touch base. Here we have a really bright spot coming from the far eastern limb at the very negative 180 spot of the backside of our star. So we will keep our eyes on that region, as that will probably see Earth-facing side somewhere around 12-13 days, I think, right before we get at least across the eastern limb anyway. And so that's that. Let's go to the TSI readings. We're finally starting to get consistency. This is for May 7th of May 6th, 2019. Came in at 1360.60. So from the last time we broadcasted on Monday, it dropped ever so slightly. Let's do this real quick, guys. We have I'm live, and bear with me. All right, that's a little better. Here we go. Looks like something from the Poltergeist movie there. All right, so let's move along here to first of all, our GSM Earth and Space news. Be alert for Steve. There's more geomagnetic storms than auroras. Sometimes a completely different phenomenon appears. It's called Steve. No relation to the photographer here, but the strange mauve ribbon arcing over Chilliwack, BC on May 14th. Now, we've seen Steve in many different forms. This is absolutely stunning right here. Steve is a hot 3,000 degrees Celsius ribbon of ionized gas slicing through Earth's upper atmosphere some 300 kilometers above the ground. It appears unpredictably during some but not all geomagnetic storms, originally thought to be a type of aurora. New research shows that it is not an aurora at all. The soft purple color of Steve may be caused by emissions from nitrogen, according to a new study just published in the Geophysical Research Letters. Its color and narrow ribbon-like structures distinguish it from regular auroras, which tend to be green and wide. Residents of Canada and northern tier U.S. should look for Steve this week after the CMEs hit, and let's move right into that. 5 Earth-directed CMEs. All right, it's been a busy week this week for geomagnetic activity and solar weather. A several degree long solar filament, South Region 2741, disappeared by approximately 1514 UTC, May 13, 2019. Initial analysis suggests that Earth-directed component is likely with this coronal mass ejection. This is the 5th Earth-directed CME since May 6th. Solar wind parameters were indicative of a slow but mildly enhanced regime on May 13th. Talking about approximately 3:01 UTC, the May 14th, Discover spacecraft observed the unlikely arrival of a CME that departed the sun on May 10th. In reaction to the CME arrival, the BZ component began a period of sustained southward deflection near negative 15 NC. Total field strength increased slightly to 15. and wind speeds increased further than 550 kilometers per second. The KP indice was at 6 for G2, and then it reached at 5:45 UTC time on May 14th a KP of 7, which is a G3. That's a strong geomagnetic storm as of 8:59 UTC. Also, we want to point out too that later that day we had the 7.7 earthquake in Papua New Guinea. Potential areas impact partially poleward 50 degrees geomagnetic latitude. Power system voltage irregularities possible. False alarms may be triggered on some protection devices. On spacecraft, systems may experience surface charging, increased drag on low Earth orbit satellites, and orientation problems may occur. Navigation, intermittent satellite GPS problems, including loss of lock and increased range of air, may occur. Radio, high frequency, may be intermittent. And aurora may be seen as low as Pennsylvania to Oregon. Wow. So that's what happens on a G3. And then they show you what happens on a G6. And again, are we looking at serious impacts on a GT, G3? No. But this is interesting to talk about when you're talking about when you're in a solar minimum. You don't get a lot of these. So again, these are stronger than usual, but nothing to be alarmed at or anything like that. We're not expecting any kind of catastrophic event from these CMEs. They're rather weak. Yes, they're happening. And you know, that's something I want to point out too. Where's that picture at? I mean, to me, this is an indication where we talk about grand solar minimum. Are we there yet, or are we heading to that? Do we still have another full cycle? And I know we've seen information that comes back and forth, and you know, first I thought we were all in it, and then, you know, maybe it was another cycle or two away, and then, well, maybe it's here. But I think what really is happening, in my opinion, is we are starting to see the beginning of this, and the beginning of it is already shocking. I don't think people expected it to be this bad in the beginning, let alone what this thing's going to do when we hit full-fledged grand solar minimum conditions. Right now, we are heading into a minimum, a deeper part of the minimum. And the sun, by giving off these CMEs, these G3 storms, to me, this just proves that we're going to do at least one more cycle before we see grand solar minimum conditions settle in. I could be wrong. I just report this stuff. But again, some of the stuff that we're seeing from our star right now is that this is not activity of a sun going into the grand solar minimum as in right now. To be able to produce these minor flares, not a big deal, but still this sunspot has, I think this is the third time now it's been around and it's been active. And I think each time it comes around, it has a different kind of phenomena that's happening around it. So interesting, but the activity is still minor. It's no alarm or any kind of indication of a strong solar cycle to come, but maybe just an observation that we're not quite done yet. We will see another cycle. And in the 2030s, that's when we might see a prolonged grand solar minimum like, you know, conditions. I know a lot of people's work is pointing towards the 2030s of this. A little bit more evidence that cycle 25 may be slightly stronger than 24. And that's not a big deal either, folks. Because 24 was the deepest we've had, or the lowest activity we've had, what, 150, 200 years almost? So this cycle coming up, again, this could be right on schedule, folks. Interesting to look at, but check out the article for yourself, watchers.news. Thank you once again. And just a follow-up here on the earthquake that Mari did a live show, and I kind of phoned in on this. No real update about if there was any damage or any casualties. At this point, we still haven't seen anything. They issued a green alert for shaking-related fatalities and economic losses, which is a low likelihood of casualties and damage was caused. So to this day, we don't have any kind of anything. Now, a lot of people felt the shaking, very strong. 18,000 felt that. Strong shaking. Over 230,000 people felt that. But a lot more felt weak and light. Over 600,000 people felt the weak and light. And if you add up from not felt through moderate, we're talking almost 800, yeah, right around close to 800,000 people who felt it. Very strong, about 250,000 for strong and very strong, and then severe, violent, extreme, nobody felt that. So big earthquake. Still no word if there was any casualties or any kind of damage at this point. I think we would have heard something by now. Again, this happened on the 14th, right after we got the, let's see, this was 12:58 UTC time. So this was after the G3 storm that we got on the 14th of May as well. So we just want to touch base on that real quick. Check this out. Severe floods hit Croatia, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. One person killed, several injured. And this looks like another Watchers link. It is. Good stuff. Prolonged heavy rain is causing severe flooding across central Croatia and Bosnia since May 12, 2019. That's 3 days now. One person was killed. Another one remains missing. Strong winds and heavy rainfall is affecting parts of Croatia and Bosnia since May 12, leading to deaths, injuries, and damage. At least 5 people were injured in Zagreb on May 13th while strong winds downed trees and caused power outages. Firefighters reported over 500 interventions and 300 rescues in Zagreb and its surroundings. One person was killed near the island of Kirk after his fishing boat capsized during stormy weather. Flood defenses were raised in the central towns, and I am not going to attempt that one, folks. That's a big boy word there for sure. If you've been well traveled, you could pronounce that. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, 5 municipalities declared a state of emergency. Classes in some schools were canceled. Traffic, electricity, and water supply were also disrupted. Hundreds of houses have been affected, authorities said late May 14th. Landslides blocked some of the roads in central part of the country, while floods destroyed a temporary pedestrian bridge near the town of Banja Luka. One person, a 6-year-old boy, fell into the swollen creek in the village of Bigov Han and is still missing, unfortunately. Rivers Sana, Una, and Asora rivers are causing the biggest problems, while authorities are urging people to remain cautious. So the floods are not expected to reach catastrophic levels seen in the last exactly 5 years ago when the region experienced its worst flooding ever. On May 14, 2014, a stationary front positioned itself over Croatia, Serbia, Bosnia. Over the next 5 days, it dumped extremely heavy rain, leaving the region under widespread flooding, which forever changed the lives of tens of thousands of people. Now look at this map. I mean, we've literally talked about parts of the world underwater, large amounts of underwater, United States, here in Europe, India, Mozambique. I mean, just every part of the world you can imagine is receiving large amounts of rain, flooding, constant flooding. That is cosmic ray influx, causing multiple precipitation dumps like this. And again, if this is only the beginning, what are we going to do in 2020 and 2021? If these insurance companies, are they going to be able to handle the financial burden? All right, let's take a look here. This is an interesting story. Mari found this for me. Fox News. This is an interesting story, guys. I'm a little concerned, and then we need to read between the lines on this one. Henry Villa Zoo in Madison is without a prairie dog exhibit after the animals unfortunately didn't make it through the winter. WKOW reported out of nearly 20 animals, only one survived this winter. Zoo officials told WMTV with this the historic flooding in the summer and fall of 2018, the table rose, which restricted how far the prairie dogs could burrow in the ground to keep warm in January. The polar vortex brought record-breaking cold. According to the WMTV zoo officials, they said they were working to create a new prairie dog exhibit that is resilient during extreme weather climates. This is something that we really want to continue to have at the zoo, says Jess Thompson. Conversation education curator told WMTV, it's a really important species to us. And so we look forward into what this might look like. And we actually have removed our current prairie dog exhibit, knowing that it is not going to hold up to our future climate, and instead decided to expand the space for our bison so they have a bigger yard. No. No. Folks, read between the lines on this one. It's plain as day. They are going to get rid of the prairie dog exhibit because they know it's not going to hold up to their future climate, right? So they say they're going to expand the bison exhibit for a bigger yard. Mari's the one that pointed this out to me as well. Bison are cold weather animals. So this zookeeper, this representative here, is basically admitting that our future climate is not suitable for these prairie dogs anymore. In fact, we're going to have to get things like bison in here to withstand the upcoming winters. That's a good catch, and that's a big props and shout out to Mari. She's the one that found this article. And at first I saw it, but when I came home today, and I'm like, that's sad. Poor prairie dogs. But the biggest part of this story, and it's in quotes, and that's why I love it, it's at the bottom. You know, not everybody's going to read the quote part, right? I guess not. I mean, what does this person, now mind you, this person is an education curator. All right? They understand the climate, they understand their habitat, and they know that this was not a fluke. Now, another cry of outrage is that these prairie dogs that didn't make it through the winter, well, you know, it's a zoo. Why couldn't we move these animals inside when a couple of them started dying? So that's another story. But just really weird that this person's going to say that we've removed the current prairie dog exhibit knowing that it's not going to hold up to our future climate, and instead decided to expand the space for our bison so they have a bigger yard. Look, even if they were trying to say climate change, man-made global warming was part of this, how is that true? How is that possible? When they know they're putting bison, expanding it, because bison are going to be the only thing that withstands this kind of weather, because it's going to be cold in the future. Stunning, outstanding find here tonight. Impressive to me that, like I said, read between the lines, folks. This person here believes that our climate is going to continue to get colder. And therefore, let's not even bring the prairie dogs back. Let's go ahead and just expand the yard for the bison. Yeah, right. Guys, we'll be right back.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.
All right, so here we go. Another find here. Some of April's costly storms. U.S. tornadoes, Canada floods, Mozambique cyclone. I believe these are the numbers from insurance companies here. Yep, Insurance Journal. It says here, article, some of April's natural catastrophes included elevated number of tornadoes, United States, strongest cyclone ever to hit Mozambique on record, and costly seasonal flooding in eastern Canada that inundated nearly 10,000 homes, according to AN's latest monthly global catastrophe recap report. And if you click here on the link, you will see a PDF here for April.
This is just April.
Just April. So, executive summary, 250 plus tornadoes touched down. The highest number since 2011. Wow. 140 mile an hour intensity of a cyclone Kenneth at landfall. The strongest storm to hit Mozambique. Remember, we had a die also out there 6 weeks before that. That was almost as strong. 10,000 homes lost in Canada for flooding. 374 deaths reported globally due to flooding and severe weather events. Seems like a drop in a bucket, right, for billions of people, but still quite a bit of people died. And this report here is really, really, really in depth, talking about the money that, okay, like right here on April 10th to April 12th, winter weather was the reason for loss. Thousands of structures were turning in claims, over $100 million in damage just from winter weather. Severe weather, plain southeast, 4 deaths, thousands of structures claims, hundreds of millions of dollars lost. Severe weather, plain southeast, this is 423 through 425, thousands claims, hundreds of millions of dollars lost. 430 through 502, severe weather, plain Midwest, 2 deaths, thousands of claims, and hundreds of millions of dollars. Another severe weather event in the plains, southeast, Midwest, northeast, 9 deaths, 90,000 claims, and 925 plus million. So just unreal on the amount of money that we have seen flying out the window. Softball size hail, 4.5 inches in diameter, damaging straight lines across the southeast from April 5th through the 8th. The most significant hail damage occurred in Texas. Other states citing damage included parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Total economic loss was listed upwards of $250 million, with insurers covering only $190 million of that. So who pays for the other $60 million? Comes out of the customer's pocket, folks. Excellent report here, guys. I recommend this. This takes more than just me talking about it on the air for a few minutes. Everyone should go to this link. Forget about the article and the commentary or whatever. This is the raw information, okay? So when I'm sitting here talking about, oh, cosmic rays and floods all over the world, here it is. Here it is right here, guys. South America. Millions of dollars in lost economics. Unknown, not as much in Colombia, limited information. This figure here, just for April in Europe, millions of dollars lost in Greece. More Spain, whether tens of millions were lost as well. Hundreds of claims in the Middle East. There were no significant disasters in the Middle East in the month of April. That's because Iran was behaving themselves. Africa, 422 through 425. South Africa flooding, thousands of claims, 100 plus million in loss. Cyclone Kenneth, 60,000 claims and 100 plus million in losses. And think about this, guys. If there's 100 million plus loss in these parts of the world that are not considered modernized or technology and everything, I mean, think about the loss had they have been modernized in some areas. The money would be through the roof. And I bet you the majority of the loss here is from the crops. Asia, tons of stuff here. Millions of dollars in lost economics. Thousands of claims, anything from wildfire to severe weather, flooding, severe weather, earthquake. Philippines, over 5,000 claims, $50 plus million in losses. And it gets worse. Australia, New Zealand. So here's an appendix at the end showing the January through March. I mean, when you scroll through this and see all the hundreds of millions and the 20 plus millions and 17 millions, and look at this, Africa, Cyclone Idai caused 2 billion plus in losses. 2 billion. And then right after that, more flooding, South Africa. And of course, Kenneth, happening in May. Asia, hundreds of millions of dollars lost in economic losses. Hundreds of thousands of claims. I mean, eventually, again, this is 1 month. So in some spots it read that 250 million were done in damages and only 190 of it is going to be covered by insurance. That's a big problem, folks. And that number is going to get worse by the year. Next year, next spring. My gosh, I don't even want to think about it. You thought the snowpack was bad this year. Of course, who knows? We might just have to deal with the raw cold and ice next year and not even worry about a bunch of snowfall because it's too cold to snow. Maybe. And then people will really start to feel the effects of why cold weather is a lot more dangerous than hot weather. So, important stuff, folks. Please check this article out on our website. It is the first article that we talk about tonight on the climate news. And once again, a great find from Mari. North Korea says it's suffering its worst drought in decades. We mentioned this the other night in the broadcast. They're amongst their economic issues, amongst sanctions handed down by the United States, crop shortages, and now they're reportedly suffering its worst drought in nearly 4 decades amid reports of severe food shortages. So, on top of severe food shortages, folks, not just food loss, but severe food shortages, now we are suffering the worst drought in 40 years plus. The report came in after UN food agencies said in a joint assessment earlier this month that about 10 million people in North Korea were facing severe food shortages after the country had one of the worst harvests in a decade. In February, North Korea's ambassador to the United States, Kim Song, issued an unusual appeal for urgent food assistance. We mentioned this the other night in the headlines on Global News or Google News and Global News. Many places are now reporting severe food loss, severe food crisis, severe food shortage, major crop loss. Again, when we started this channel in 2016, it was a little bit in the news, not a lot. And then 2017, it got a little worse. And then 2018, it got a little more widespread. But I got to tell you right now, 2019 takes the cake. There has been more reporting about food shortages throughout the world, more than I've ever seen here in the first 5 months of 2019. Lots of headlines. All right. So Jakobshavn, the mighty Greenland Glacier, slams on the brakes. And what they're saying here, and I'll read this, European satellites have detailed the abrupt change in behavior of one of Greenland's most important glaciers. In the 2000s, the Jakobshavn was the fastest flowing ice stream on the island, traveling at 17 kilometers a year. As it sped to the ocean, its front end also retreated and thinned, dropping in height by as much as 20 meters a year. That's a lot. All right? But now it's all changed. Jakobshavn is traveling much more slowly, and its trunk has even begun to thicken and lengthen. It's a complete reversal in behavior, and it wasn't predicted, said Dr. Anna Hogg from Leeds University at the UK Centre for Polar Observation and Modeling, CPOM. The question is now, what's next for Jakobshavn? Is this a pause, or is it a switch off the dynamic thinning we've seen previously? The glacier is sited in the southwest Greenland. It's famous for spectacular production of icebergs. Colossal blocks form its terminus and drift down its ford out into the Disco Bay, onwards to the North Atlantic. More than likely, it was Jakobshavn that spawned the iceberg that sank the Titanic. Fun fact, kids. So, interesting article here talking about things doing a 180. And again, of course, we all hear that the consensus says that we are warming and the ice is melting. And for this person to write in this article, wow, it's actually doing the opposite, and it wasn't predicted. And that to me shows the amazement of, wow, wait a minute. We thought this was going to melt and continue to retreat, and now it's regaining its strength and growth and thickness. What's happening? Could the consensus be wrong? Oh my. We have much more, folks. Stay tuned. Keep coming. Keep coming here. Yeah. All right. Here we go. So let's get into this. Let's talk about, well, these guys are left-wing liberals who agree with the democratic socialists of the idea of the Green New Deal and how man is affecting climate change. I want to warn you guys right now that there is bad language in this, and I think it's important that this is played tonight, and it's not to be rude or crude or anything like that. I just got to know, folks. I have to know, and I want your opinion after this, and I'm sure some of you seen this. Let's watch this debacle. And I got another one for you, too. I promise there's a point to it all.
That was, to its eternal credit, the Green New Deal has succeeded in getting people talking. But that won't mean anything unless that talk now turns to actions. And putting a price on carbon could potentially be one of them. Although, let me reiterate, it will not be enough on its own by a long shot. We're going to need a lot of different policies working in tandem, and we have to take action right now. But you don't have to just take that from me. Instead, I'm happy to say that Bill Nye has actually agreed to help drive the urgency.
This is garbage, folks.
At this point, by actually doing one of his enjoyable, light-hearted demonstrations. So, Bill, please, do you have a fun experiment for us?
Here, I've got an experiment for you. Safety glasses on. By the end of this century, if emissions keep rising, the average temperature on Earth could go up another 4 to 8 degrees. What I'm saying is the planet's on fucking fire.
Oh.
There are a lot of things we could do to put it out. Are any of them free? No, of course not. Nothing's free, you idiots. Grow the fuck up. You're not children anymore. I didn't mind explaining photosynthesis to you when you were 12, but you're adults now, and this is an actual crisis. Got it? Safety glasses off, motherfuckers.
Oh. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, I've never even heard Oppenheimer drop that many F-bombs in one program. I mean, good grief. Could you imagine if somebody on this side of the community actually described global cooling in the same texture that Bill Nye just did here? And Jesse Waters lined this one up perfectly. If this was an actual global crisis, nobody would be laughing. Nobody would be making a joke about this. This is absolutely disgusting. And this is the new way of things, folks. This is how you're going to get talked to. When you don't agree with the consensus, okay? You're going to get talked to like this. I got a letter I want to read. Our good friend Scott Chapman. And by the way, folks, if you are from another country and speak different languages, Scott informed me today that he is willing to translate these into different languages for any customer. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If you were purchasing the PDF that he is more than happy to translate it. And while we're talking about Scott Chapman, Mari, for our viewing pleasure, is going to break down the entire presentation that took place between Scott and I about the 101 of Grand Solar Minimum. Mari has broke these down into what, 10, 20-minute videos?
9.
So we have 9 videos to watch.
They vary in time. They're shorter. They're 20, between 10 and 20 minutes long.
Okay.
And the original video had 2 hours and 45 minutes of footage. So we broke it down in chapters so people can really sort of absorb the information on the fly, without having to sit through a 2-hour.
Yeah, I mean, Scott joked with me the other day. He says, I made it through 90 minutes of it, and that was it. We don't have 2 hours and 49 minutes to sit around. And I think this is a great way for people to absorb the information that Scott has for us. So thanks again to Mari, our producer here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel, for taking the time to edit these videos down into chapters and help people understand it. Guys, I got to be honest with you. These videos are going to be short enough to where maybe you watch it one day and then a couple weeks later you go back and watch it again because you're trying to grasp everything that we're talking about on this channel. This is a great way to understand grand solar minimum science. But back to this here. Jesse Waters mentioned it great, that if this was a real crisis, nobody would be joking. But I want to get back to the point here of where I mentioned Scott. He sent me an email, and it was a letter that an educator in California had written him. And I'm working on, actually, I want to have a sit down, and I would love to talk to this guy for a few minutes and find out what it's like to be a teacher in this Common Core education system. And he has a lot of interesting comments about Common Core, which I think all of us will probably agree with his ideas and opinions about Common Core. But the point I mentioned him is that back in 1996, he went to like a workshop for science. And he's a chemistry teacher, by the way, in high school, 11th grade chemistry. And during this workshop, these instructors were showing these teachers science projects that they could bring back to the classroom to prove that man is causing climate change, and that the consensus was 97%. And basically these instructors were telling the teachers, look, this is what it is, 97% consensus. And they just repeated it over and over and over and over again and drove it in these teachers' heads. Now we're teaching the kids this crap. That's what's happening right here. Here's another one. This one's even worse. George Clooney. This one's about 3 minutes long. At least this one, they actually censor out the bad words. But I mean, are you guys floored that a guy who does science projects for children is dropping F-bombs left and right to prove his point? Is that going to convince you? Would you have voted for Donald Trump if someone called you an effing idiot? Would you have voted for Hillary Clinton if someone called you an effing idiot? If you don't do it, you're an effing idiot. Check this out.
According to a new report from the United Nations, our planet is in worse shape than at any other time in human history. They say 1 million animal and plant species are on the verge of extinction.
There's a fear-monger statement.
And climate change. And yet our federal government, not only did they do nothing about it, they seem to like it. The Secretary of State today said, Mike Pompeo said, melting sea ice presents new opportunities for trade. Great. It would be very good for the kayak industry.
Cherry picking data right there, by the way. They didn't talk about the rest of his statement.
But everyone else is screwed. And the Trump administration has done everything they can to do nothing about climate change. They just don't listen to the scientists.
No, they do listen to the scientists. They're not wasting taxpayer monies. There's nothing to do about climate change but prepare and act. That's why they've rolled back regulations, because the Obama administration was going about this the wrong way. So there's nothing man can do to stop or start it. We just have to be ready. All right, I'll stop interrupting.
A lot of people don't, not just when it comes to climate change. Scientific fact is suddenly seen as some kind of partisan scare tactic, and it endangers all of us. So one major celebrity is spearheading a new initiative to raise awareness of this foray into ignorance, and what he has to say is important. So please listen.
Hi, I'm actor, director, and two-time sexiest man alive, George Clooney. Science has given us unprecedented knowledge of the natural world, from subatomic particles to the majesty of space. Science enables us to cure diseases, to communicate across great distances, even to fly.
Note how Clooney is trying to act as if he is in favor of science, okay? And if that was true, then he would not be even talking about climate change and man-made cause and all this other shit, okay? I'm sorry. I'll leave the cussing to the liberals here.
Tragically, though, the volumes of invaluable knowledge gathered over centuries are now threatened by an epidemic of dumb idiots saying dumb.
You know what this is? It's a snowball. So it's very, very cold out.
Dumb is highly contagious, infecting the minds of even the most stable geniuses.
If you have a windmill anywhere near your house, they say the noise causes cancer.
Okay, so maybe Trump isn't all the way 100% accurate about his claim, but the noise does cause a frequency issue. Mari has talked to me about this many, many times, and what she talks about is very fascinating, what it does to mental health, your sleep patterns. Mari, I mean, what was it you were telling me about what the wind turbines do? That you said you could actually hear them in the distance?
It's like...
It's a weird droning noise. It's subtle.
It's EMF poisoning.
EMF poisoning. Okay. So, I mean, you know, Trump's on the right track. I don't know. Have you heard cancer cases from this?
I haven't heard.
Yeah.
It's more... Let me get over here so people can hear me. It's more about the sound and vibration. You know, it makes people sick. If you do any research on EMFs, there's a slew of other things that are wrong with windmills. You do the research, it's sort of shocking how bad it is. But there's a few documentaries out there, people who actually live near these turbines, and just lack of sleep, insomnia.
So bottom line is
arrhythmia problems.
It does cause sickness.
It does.
It does cause sickness. All right, let's listen on.
Tell me that one, okay?
Wow. As a result, rampant dumb now threatens our health, our security, and our planet. Fortunately, there is hope. At United to Defeat Untruthful Misinformation and Support Science. You dumbass. Your generous contribution to You Dumbass will provide desperately needed knowledge to dumb idiots on Facebook and Twitter all around the world. Just $20 will convince one idiot that climate change is real. $50 will teach 5 brainless dumb to vaccinate their kids. And $200 will teach 10 knuckle draggers that dinosaurs existed, but not at the same time as people. Together, we can win the fight against dumb but we can't do it alone. Call this number today. Operators are standing by. Don't be an idiot. The world needs your support. You dumbass.
All right. So how do you feel out there, folks? How do you feel about being called a dumb ass or an effing idiot or a mother effer? Or grow the F up. I tell you, never in my life would Valentina Zarkova speak to anyone with that kind of language. Same with John Casey. I mean, those are trusted people of sources there. And surely you will never catch them in a presentation or even a playful commercial that's insulting anyone's intelligence whatsoever. I mean, look, this is just proof that Hollywood would do anything for money. Anything. And this goes back to that article, or not the article, the email from the teacher, where in 1996 they really ramped it up. Workshops all over the world, I'm sure. But to drive it in that this is man's fault. And I love how George Clooney makes the claim that people don't believe that climate change isn't real. Oh, that's not the case. Climate change is real. It's just not caused by man. Carbon dioxide, CO2 is not causing climate change. And Bill Nye will tell you that the SUVs and all that are causing emissions, and that's why they're taxing it. So we use less, and our climate gets better because we can't afford to use cars anymore or heat our homes. According to Bill Nye, he says that the coal and driving SUVs are causing the planet's temperature to rise, wildfires to increase, and more floods. Funny how he doesn't talk about the record-breaking snowfall in the northern hemisphere this year. Funny that he doesn't talk about rapid ice growth in the Arctic this year. Funny how he's not talking about this glacier in Greenland. Funny how he doesn't talk about all the cold records that were broken this year. Funny how he's not talking about how last year in the spring, the soil temperature was too cold and seeds were rotting in fields. Growth seasons are getting shorter. Plantings are starting later. Food crises are popping up all over the world. And he wants to blame it on you and your SUV and your furnace running because you're using natural gas. It's just frustrating when channels like us, people like the Starman, Scott Chapman, DAP 2030, other guys that are helping out and doing the message of service, we try to keep it together. The integrity is the most important thing about this topic. That when we present the information, that it's accurate and correct and understandable. And I think that's the primary function of these kinds of information channels, is that we have to protect the integrity of this topic. So we're already fighting an uphill battle. And then top it off, the people that are opposing the work that we're doing, like George Clooney and Bill Nye, are cursing at the people who deny what the consensus is saying. Because we're starting to hear that the consensus was never the consensus. It was just taught to our instructors that it was consensus. There is no consensus in science. The point of science is to keep testing it over and over and over again. You don't settle on anything when it comes to science. Just as that glacier in Greenland did a complete opposite of what was predicted. So you can't have settled science. There's no consensus. And that even means we got to continue to test this theory of low sunspots equaling cooling temperatures, cosmic rays equaling historic floods and snowfall and cloud nucleation. That has to be continually tested. But I'll tell you, that's what I feel like we do every time we do a broadcast, when we show these articles that relate to those topics, those situations. That is more proof that we're pouring in to the bowl of science that's here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel and all the community. There's nothing but science information that we report on a bi-daily basis. So we're not science deniers. We're not climate deniers. We're man-made climate change deniers. Get that straight, Mr. Clooney and Mr. Nye. Nobody's denying climate change. We're just denying your propaganda that you're trying to feed and force feed it. In fact, the reason why they're cursing at us now, people, is because we're rejecting this regurgitated information and throwing it right back in their faces. So it's angering these guys because they get paid a lot of money to lie to you about man-made global warming. So they're protecting their investment by ad hominem attacks on people like me and you. If I were you guys, I wouldn't watch another George Clooney movie from here on out. I'd boycott anything that even involves him. I liked Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Not anymore. I'm getting away from these people who want to go out there. Look, if he just would have came out and said he believes in man-made global warming and we have to do something about climate change, and if you don't help, it's your children it's going to affect. I don't know if I'd have the same kind of reaction to his plea, because at least he's not ad hominem attacking anybody and attempting to act like he knows what's happening with the climate. At least the other points I just mentioned, you sympathize a little bit. Poor little guy, he doesn't know any better. That's okay. But this right here, this is completely disinformation to scare people. Point blank. I think I've said enough, guys. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. We got some weather to talk about, folks.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.
Try to get through this as quickly as possible. It took a little more time than I wanted to, but those videos on Nye and Clooney really kind of got me fired up a little bit. So let's go into some cooler topics. Maybe it'll cool me off a little bit here. Winter makes a comeback in the Northeast, bringing snow and record-breaking cold. You don't say. Is this a repeat from last weekend? Oh, it's not. This is new. This is coming. Earlier this week, today and tomorrow, with cooler conditions, rain, even snow in several northern locations. Many living in the Northeast experienced lower than average temperatures on Monday. A low temperature of 42 degrees Fahrenheit was recorded in New York City's Central Park, according to the National Weather Service. The temperature fell 3 degrees shy of an all-time record low for May 13th in 1895. The all-time low high temperature of 49 for May 13th, set way back in 1914, was shattered on Monday when it only climbed to 48 degrees in the Big Apple. That's 15 to 20 degrees below average. Meanwhile, some residents in the Northeast states woke up to find a blanket of snow outside their windows on Tuesday morning in upstate New York. Oh, yes. Actually, I heard there were 6 inches of snow that fell in some of the upper parts of the area out here in the Lake George region, believe it or not. Most of the snow fell on higher terrain of Vermont and New Hampshire. Snow also mixed with rain across lower elevations, certain locations including Lebanon, New Hampshire. Lebanon, New Hampshire averages about 0.2 inches of snow. In the month of May, while May snow does not happen every year, it's certainly not unheard of in the area. 5.5 inches of snow since last night in Rochester, Vermont. 4.0 in Greensboro. Cabot got 3.8. Walden 3.7. Daneville 3.5. About 6 to 8 inches of snow blanketed Killington and Mount Snow in Vermont. Estimates AccuWeather meteorologist and social media manager Jesse Farrell. Snowfall will help the Killington ski resort remain in operation, folks. It's May. I know on Whiteface Mountain out here, that snow has finally melted off its trail, and that probably happened late April, early May. Look at this. Some of the record highs and lows for today. So we've seen really hot weather on this day and really cold weather on this day. Talking about the May snow record that was broke, we talked about this Monday. 117-year-old record was broken in Duluth. We'll leave the link article here on thegrandsolarminimum.com. Severe weather returns. Guys, it seems like every time I do a Wednesday or Thursday show, it's like I feel like I'm repeating myself. Multi-day outbreak, severe thunderstorms to hit the Plain States Friday into next week with tornadoes, hail, damaging floods. This is a multi-day outbreak of severe weather or roar back in the plains. Numerous severe storms are possible from Nebraska to Texas. Texas has already seen its share. This severe threat will persist through the weekend. Another round of severe weather then may follow in the Plain States next Monday and Tuesday. Tornadoes, large hail, damaging winds, and flooding rains are all threats. So here we have Thursday, possible thunderstorms on Thursday. Damaging wind gusts will be possible from Nebraska to South Dakota, eastward to the southern Great Lakes on Thursday. Friday, scattered supercell thunderstorms are possible by Friday afternoon or early evening in the high plains. From South Dakota to western Oklahoma and the rolling plains of West Texas, a few thunderstorms may also continue along the warm front, draped eastward into the South Great Lakes. These storms could produce large hail, damaging winds, and a few tornadoes. Two areas of particular concern are central Nebraska and portions of western Texas and western Oklahoma. In Nebraska, the main low-pressure system will bring increased winds aloft, which should lead to numerous severe thunderstorms that are capable of very large hail and destructive wind gusts. A few tornadoes cannot be ruled out. These storms will develop late Friday afternoon, continuing into Friday night. By late Friday night, damaging winds will be the greatest concern. In Texas and Oklahoma, the contrast between dry southwestern air and moist flow from the Gulf of Mexico may be a focusing point for storms capable of very large hail and a few tornadoes. Busy weekend. Saturday night, here's your threat once again. Kansas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Texas all again. Sunday moves a little bit further to the east. This is going to be the Mississippi Valley. Little Rock, Arkansas is on the edge of it. Missouri, Polar Bluff, Paducah, Kentucky, Jackson, Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee, and Greenville, Louisiana, I believe here. We are talking about a potential for severe thunderstorms Sunday into Sunday night. And then Monday into Tuesday, we got more severe weather and floods coming back again to the plain. This is the precipitation outlook from now through May 21st. So this is less than 7 days. The yellows are probably going to be between the 3 and 5 inch range. The dark greens are probably your 2 to 3, 2 to 4. And then your lighter greens here are probably 1 to 2, ½ inch. So, you know, South Dakota, you don't need any more rain, but you're getting a lot more. Parts of northwestern Iowa, same with you. Minnesota, you definitely don't need heavy rain. You're getting it, though. Parts of Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, more heavy rain in Dallas. Very wet spring, very cool spring. I saw some comments too, guys. I know it's usually cool in the spring. It's usually moist. You're absolutely right. But it's in the middle of May, and there's places right now where the temperature in the soil is not suitable for farming, period. So I expect this cool, cold weather in April, not the middle of May. I don't want to hear that this is usual spring weather. No, it's not. This isn't usual spring weather. This much rain every day. This much flooding every day. With rare May snow, winter returns to Florida. Massachusetts, by the way. Just wanted to kind of trick everybody real quick. Another headline, though. More snow in the Northeast. May snow. This is probably the 4th record snow that we've talked about in May. An atmospheric river storm arrives in the Bay Area. I showed you guys this the other day on our last broadcast on the GFS prediction. There's that moisture heading its way. Atmospheric rivers. We've already seen mudslides and floods. Talking about also, don't want to forget this, snow in May. Sierra, another May snow headline. Up to a foot as a rare cold storm sweeps over California. In addition to the wet weather and possible record cold setting in Sacramento Valley and foothills, Sierra will see snow showers Thursday into the weekend. Temperatures dipping as low as 25. A rare mid-May storm could affect the northern central Sierra. In a special weather statement early Monday, National Weather Service Reno's office warns that snow levels could fall to 6,000 feet by the end of the week. Forecasts for the mountains and the foothills also show wind gusts up to 40 miles per hour, possible by midweek. Snowfall is most likely to begin Wednesday for much of the Sierra, ramping up starting on Thursday. Up to a foot. And where I was going with that is I wanted to talk about Oroville Dam, which we are getting ready to see them test these spillways here very soon, especially when we take a look at our GFS forecasting tool here at Tropical Tidbits. We'll get into that right now, actually. Here we go. Wednesday, May 15th. You see that low pressure system in Northern California right now as we speak. Heavy rain over the northern part of California. There's your heavy precipitation in the Sierras. By Thursday night, starting to get heavier. And rain just kind of sticking around in Northern California and the Sierras all the way through Friday. And finally, this system makes its way across the southern plains. This is where the other flooding is going to take place. So the same moisture moving across the northern plain states that we just talked about. And here we are, more moisture coming in. This is round 2 of another atmospheric river, a minor one coming through Sunday through Monday in the Bay Area and Northern California and the Sierras. This low pressure system is really getting its act together by May 20th, moving across the Ohio Valley into the Northeast, drenching the Northeast on Monday. Again, the same type of weather that we had this past Monday is repeating itself once again next Monday. 21st, storms and heavy precipitation ramps up again for Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. Again, the Northwest will be inundated by a massive storm again. Rain and snow expected in the higher elevations. Heavy precipitation falling across the Midwest. This low pressure system is consistently dumping rain across the northern plains and then kind of fizzles out as it gets towards the Northeast. Now, the only reason why it's not getting as heavy towards the Northeast, in my opinion, is it's a lot cooler. And there's more warmth and heat in the central plains that's fueling these storms. So therefore, we are seeing a lot more intense rainfall, more wind, possibility for flash flooding, severe weather, and tornadoes. So from this midweek all the way until next Friday, we are going to have a very active weather pattern. And then we get a little bit of a break here for a couple days into Saturday, May 25th. But once again, the central plains will be inundated with moisture. and continue to see chances of showers off and on all the way through the end of May across the same exact areas over and over again. So Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin, watch out. Also the Northeast, you'll be getting your share of precipitation as well, but we're only talking about in a small scale of, you know, maybe 1 to 2 inches. Now look at this, guys. It's early, but we are looking at the potential of our first possible hurricane of the 2019 season. A very early system is now beginning to kind of show its face here on the GFS. May 31st, let's take a look at the next run here. So this storm kind of gets a little bit more organized. Now, what does our ocean temperatures look like right now? Is it going to be warm enough at this point? Let's find out. So this is going to be something to watch, guys. Early June, late May, give or take a few days. This system down here is definitely something to keep an eye on. Again, it's very early. This is 15 days out, 16 days out to be exact. So I always use the GFS forecaster here for just a hint, an idea. And when I look at the patterns and I see what's happening in our forecast, this gives me a good idea of the trends that we're possibly going to see. And absolutely, we're going to see more flooding in the Midwest and the northern plain states. Texas is not going to get as much as we thought, but they're still reeling from the flood damage they have right now. They're still looking at 2 to 3 major systems moving through Texas still in the next 2 weeks. But what this GFS tells me into the future after 10 days is that the pattern that it's holding has been kind of right this year, and that is we are going to be wet. The Northeast, the Midwest, the Plain States, Southern Plain States, and Texas. And now California and Northwest. So we continue to see this trend of constant and persistent precipitation. And this just shows you how much moisture is being brought with each system. I want the total. Here we go. Wow. Look at that. So the only corner in the part of the United States that's not getting rain is supposed to not get rain in the desert for the most part here, Arizona. That's about right down here, guys. Let's move that up a little bit. Look at this. 4.5 inches of rain throughout parts of the Northeast, up to 5 inches of rain. Pennsylvania, western Pennsylvania, almost 5 inches of rain. Again, we see some shades of yellow popping up here in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa. That's the 10-inch to 12-inch range of moisture. Same in the Sierras, darker purple, oranges, and yellows. In just 2 weeks, we're going to see a foot of rain in Northern California. So, and then of course you got this system down here where it's dropping over a foot of rain right now with this storm system, and it looks pretty productive if you ask me. So, a lot to keep track of here in the next couple of weeks. Believe it or not, we're halfway to June. We're almost in the summer season. And that's why I'm kind of making a small deal about it being cool and wet still. Like usually by this point of May, even up here in upstate New York, it starts to warm up a little bit. Today was nice. It got about to 61. Not bad. It's been 52 for the high for the last 3 days. So I'll take 61. But again, we should be well into the 70s at this point of the year. Especially being closer to the East Coast. We see a lot more ridging now and a lot more of a heat up along the East Coast than we see inland in the Northeast. And, you know, we were talking about this a couple broadcasts ago, the end of the month. We got a really big heat wave coming to the south. Right now, this is definitely a moderate spring at this point in the GFS. And we don't really start seeing summer-like heat being produced until right about here, the 15th, which is right now. Starting to crank up a little bit in the south. Ohio, you're starting to see some nice weather. Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia. Some more normal like weather, but the Northwest, the Northern Plains, and the Northeast still struggling. Now it says here on the 19th, 84, and the capital region of New York, I think that's overdoing it. 68, 60.
Can you scroll up and show Florida? People want to know.
Oh, that's coming.
Okay.
So here we are. This is where the heat wave begins here in the south, around the 18th and the 19th. Basically on the 20th of May, we start to see this heat wave begin. And as we get closer to May 21st, even heating up even more 90s. In fact, Florida, you're going to be inundated with the 90-degree weather mark by the 21st of May. And this heat wave is going to continue to the 21st, 22nd, 25th. Here we are at the 26th, 27th. This is an official heat wave, folks, for Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, the Panhandle of Florida, and Central Florida, possibly even into Miami, the southern region. This is at least lasting 8 to 10 days of temperatures in the high 80s and the low 90s, folks. So there's the answer to your question. Is the water warm enough for a hurricane? You're damn right it is. And the heat is intense. So in some parts of the country, we're talking about, come on, it needs a warm. I mean, look, May 31st in the capital region, it's only 71. 71. 60 degrees in Washington and Oregon, 67 in Northern California, 75 in Springfield, Ohio, the Buckeye State, Columbus, 75 degrees on May 31st. Southwest Ohio, 76 degrees in Cincinnati. Guys, we're in the 80s at this point. So there's a fine line. And again, this goes back to the moisture. Where is all this moisture going to be at? Right here? Yeah, right in here, up in here, and back in here. And this goes back to my theory about moisture has a cooling effect. And we get a little bit of a break here in the south for a few days at the end of the month too. We're not getting that heavy precip that we've been seeing out here in the last several days. It's not a coincidence, folks. It's science. Real science. Pretty much. There's our ocean temperatures. No. Let's zoom in and look at this. Boy, we're starting to struggle again. We start to see temperatures around Hawaii warming up a bit, and then it's starting to cool back down again. This was more yellow than it usually was. Even here in the center, we're starting to see some lighter shades of red. Al No. What we like to call it here at the Grand Solar Minimum. North Atlantic below baseline. El Nino still below El Nino conditions. It is currently neutral, folks. El Neutro. That's what we're going to call it now. And some of these people are saying we're going to see El Nino effects all the way through late summer, early fall. Yeah. They also said that they had a 90% shot of seeing El Nino happen in November. Zoom in real quick to the Gulf. It is heating up, guys. So I think it's a real storm to kind of watch right now. So this is something we'll start to focus on here at the Grand Solar Minimum. This is our possible first named storm of the year. Who knows? This model could fall apart in 3 days and completely dissipate. So we'll keep our eyes on that, folks. Mari, I want to bring you over. Say hello to everybody real quick before we sign off for the night. It is about that time.
Hi, Jake.
Hello.
Hello, everyone in the chat. It's been a busy bunch in the chat. First off, we have our friend Ian.
Of course.
He was on a egg and bacon kick, and he said that you're on a roll. A bacon and egg roll.
I love bacon and eggs.
He's really all about that. We have Farmer Matt. He's reporting in from Illinois. He says it's wet. Only 15% of his crops are planted. He's 44 and have had wet springs, slow planting, but never like this. Worst he's ever seen.
We heard that last year too, by the way. So it's continuing to be more in frequency. Go ahead.
We've had several people, the conversations during George Looney and Bill Nye.
Yeah, George Looney's about right.
It was pretty interesting. Let's see. I'm just gonna go through. Scott Bros, thanks for the super chat. We really do appreciate that.
Thank you, Scott.
Paula
talking about the Looney and Lie clan there.
I like that.
When you have no argument, you call names if you're 9 years old.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
So that's spot on. There's so many people with it. It's hard to choose without taking up so much time. A river, Jeff, he's out near central Kansas. River just south of him is usually a small creek. Last week, it was a mile wide.
Wow. And
flowing over Interstate 35 Turnpike. That highway is now washed out, closed indefinitely until repaired. So, yeah. It's so fascinating to hear from people from all over what their experiences are. Terry in Kansas, she's popping in a little late. They've been getting a lot of rain. It actually was dry today, and she's been busy outside gardening. So it's been a good show, Jake. We've really enjoyed the content.
And, Mari, you ought to.
I don't want to brag about all the links I helped.
I was going to say you should also consider putting a video together with all the greatest clips from Lie and Looney and Crazy Cortez, and just put together like this collage of all these BS-ery
just
statements.
A video of lunacy.
My goodness, you could probably make a half-hour long video out of it.
The thing is, these people are all paid actors, and it's sad that people actually don't put it in that perspective. They're just paid actors to who knows who's paying them, but they're just there to collect the dough, really, for show. So, what a mess.
Collecting the dough for show.
For show,
Who else rhymes?
I don't know. I didn't even know
somebody else rhymes. Who does that?
Anyway, like that.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. We hope you got something out of the video tonight. Please stay tuned for the weekend. Mari has got a wonderful treat for us all. She's breaking these videos down for us for Scott Chapman's presentation. It was almost 3 hours long, but we kind of cut out the fat, and we're bringing you the meat of the bone. And it's going to be a 9-part series that's going to start airing this weekend. So we hope you guys enjoy all of that. We will try to do a show on Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. If not, I'm sure we'll find a way to premiere a couple of these live so we can kind of chat with you guys and have a little talk. That's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Thank you once again for tuning in, and we will talk soon.